Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
The reDiscovery podcast is an IVM production. If you like the show, also check out Paisa Vaisa, a show that will clear all your personal finance doubts from mutual funds to loans to SIPs.
In 2015, Ambika and Hoshner quit their jobs and set out to rediscover the country through planes, trains, and rickety old buses. What started as a break has now grown into a life of travel and discovery. On this podcast, they take you through the highlights of their journey. This is the reDiscovery Podcast.
In this week's episode, we're going to take you to one of our favorite places in India, Ladakh. Now, Ladakh has always had this, special draw about it. It's like so far, so difficult to get to, so vast. It's just like nowhere else on earth, na? So when we finally quit our jobs in 2015, the first place we wanted to go to was Ladakh. But it wasn't easy.
Yeah, we've been planning Ladakh for what? As long as we've known each other, I think, and probably even before, 5-7 years. And every year, something has always come up, either it's so far, or we don't have enough leave, or we don't have enough money, or there's some weather pattern, cloudburst happens and we can't go. Something has always stopped us. So when we, as Hoshna said, quit our jobs, we were like, now there's no trouble with the time at least. So we understand that planning a trip to Ladakh can be a little bit overwhelming. There are a lot of options, there's a lot of things to see, and it kind of feels like if you're going to go all the way there, you must do everything, but then everyone doesn't have weeks on end to explore.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider, and you got to make it worth it, right? Because you're traveling. It's like going to Leh is as good as going somewhere abroad.
Yeah,
it's as far, it costs as much. Right. So to help you plan the perfect Ladakh trip, we have with us Behzad Larry, CEO of Voyager Expeditions, which specializes in mountain trips, treks, and photo expeditions to Ladakh and the Himalayas. Hi, Behzad.
Hi guys, great to be here.
So when we went to Ladakh, we went with Behzad. So we thought he'd be a great guy to bring on board to basically help us tell you how to plan your perfect Ladakh trip.
Yeah, and Behzad is an amazing guide and photographer, and he has a superb team that works with him in Ladakh. So we'll ask him a bunch of questions and, help you plan the trip that you've always wanted to go on.
So Behzad, you just got back from Ladakh, another, 2.5-3 month trip, second one this year?
Yeah, we had 2 back-to-back expeditions. On the first one, we went up to look at snow leopards, and we had a really good time. We saw 3 cats over 3 days in Hemis National Park.
Wow.
That's not common, is it? 3 cats in 3 days?
It's with any wildlife, it depends on luck.
Yeah.
And we were super lucky. We were just in that part of Hemis National Park for about 4 days. And we had a really great guide, Ken Robb, who was also the lead tracker for the Planet Earth series, which just came out. And he has been doing this stuff for 17 years. He's been looking at and tracking the big cats up there, the snow leopards.
Where is the Hemis National Park?
It's about, you can get in there with a 1-hour drive to this place called Xingchen. From where you then do a little trek into the park. Takes about an hour or so.
So did you camp there? Or?
Yeah. We were camping in, I would say, minus 20 degrees Celsius.
Oh. Okay.
And it's
fun.
Yeah, it's not a trip for everyone, but if the snow leopard is on your bucket list, then we've got an absolutely fantastic guide who can take you there.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Voyager? What does Voyager do exactly? Other than obviously snow leopard expeditions.
Sure. Well, primarily we focus on Ladakh. So we do a lot of photography trips. We work with photographers from around the world. Our guides have hosted the BBC, National Geographic, and the Discovery Channel on filming and photo expeditions.
And your guides, are your guides all local?
Yeah, they're all Ladakhi.
Okay.
I'm the only non-Ladakhi who's in Ladakh.
The Parsi in Ladakh.
I'm the Parsi Ladakhi.
And you are from?
I'm originally from Indore, Madhya Pradesh.
Okay, so Parsi from Indore, now in Ladakh.
Now
Fantastic.
in Ladakh, exactly.
Via the US.
Via the US, yeah. But primarily our expeditions are really one-off trips. Most of our itineraries are different. They're not repeated. We do a lot of work in rural areas, trips with the nomads, and trips out in parts of Ladakh that very, very few tourists ever go to. So over the last 4 or 5 years, it's been new trips year after year.
Okay, excellent. So now this obviously it seems really exciting, but it's not something that everybody might want to do. Everyone doesn't have the time for these offbeat kind of options, or even to go see the snow leopards.
Right.
So let's start a little bit with the basics. I mean, if one wanted to plan an ideal Ladakh trip, how long do you say that would necessarily should be?
Yeah, don't say 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a 2-week trip is perfect.
2 weeks, okay.
At the very minimum, you would need at least 8 days. Most people need at least 2 days to acclimatize when they fly into Leh, which
Right.
is what most people tend to do is fly in instead of take the road.
Right.
And the first day you basically rest. The second day you sightsee around Leh, and that basically then gives you about 5 or 6 days to travel to some of the big touristy spots around the region.
And so you're saying people fly into Leh mostly. What are the drive? If somebody wanted to drive, so say I live in Delhi and I think I have time enough to drive to Leh and then spend a week. Is driving a good option?
Yeah, driving is a good option. You've got 2 routes. One is through Srinagar, one is through Manali. So if you were driving from Delhi, you would go up from Delhi through Chandigarh, through Jammu.
Basically, Rohtang and
that would be through Manali. Yeah.
to Manali.
Yeah. So either way, you would split at Chandigarh for either taking the route through Jammu and Srinagar or through Manali and onwards through the
How
south of
long
Ladakh.
is the drive from both places?
I would say it'll take you you can get to Manali in a day from Delhi.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
you would spend the night in Manali, and then it'd take you about 2 nights to get to Leh on the 3rd day from
Where do you
Manali.
stop in Sarchu or?
You stop in Sarchu, you can stop in Pang, and then you can stop somewhere near Somoriri to really make it a fun drive and take a right turn at that really nice
So the
lake.
driving sort of becomes part of your trip as well.
So if you
Exactly.
were to take your own car up, there are places where you can stop for the night along the way, or do you have to camp, or how is
For
it?
sure. You can do either option. There are lots of built campsites where someone has set up nice canvas tents, sort of like luxury camping that you can stay at. Or you can, of course, take your own camp, your own stove, and your own food and make a really nice adventure out of the whole thing.
Fun. Yeah. So that's one can drive in or just fly into Leh. There are flights, I know, from Delhi and Bombay
Yeah.
to Leh.
So a lot of people seem to think it's better to acclimatize if you drive up. Is that true? Because I've also read that because Sarchu and it's pretty high up, it's not good for acclimatization. You need to be lower than that on your way up.
There are 2. So if you're driving from Srinagar, your ascent is more gradual because Srinagar is about 1900 meters above sea level. And then you'll spend the next night at Sonmarg, which is also about 2,000 meters. Then you'll cross over into Kargil, spend the night in Kargil, which is about 2,500 meters. And then slowly you'll get to Leh, which is about 3,400 meters. So your ascent is more gradual, but you would still need another day in Leh to really acclimatize. When you're coming up from Manali, your ascent is much faster. So you go from Manali, you cross 5 high passes, and then you're basically sleeping around 4,000 meters.
Wow.
So you're going from Manali, which is about 1,800 meters, to 4,000 meters.
Oh, that's a huge jump.
Which is a huge jump and is not safe.
Okay.
And especially if you're not driving yourselves, a lot of rental vehicles will drive nonstop from Manali to Leh, and it'll be about a 24-hour journey.
Oh boy.
And
that doesn't sound like fun at all.
it doesn't sound like fun, and the drivers, what person can drive for 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So it is risky.
And I guess if you don't have that much time, like you said, you want to spend as much time in Ladakh, then the best option might just be to fly into Leh. So one has flown in, we've spent the first day resting, the second day exploring Leh town itself, which has some beautiful temples and monasteries to see, right?
And it has the palace also,
And
right?
the palace, yeah. So
quite
that's
nice.
so that's there. So what are now? There's lots to do in Ladakh, and when we went, we did a bunch of different things. Some of the more usual stuff, and some slightly off.
So most people will do a 10 to 15 day trip, and so what can you practically pack into that without really packing it in?
You have to really account for the long driving distances in Ladakh. So I think a lot of the requests we get when we first engage with guests over email is that they'll look at Google Maps and they'll plan out their journey before actually reaching out to people. And so Google Maps is, really poor estimate.
In the mountains.
Yeah. So it assumes, much faster speed than what you can actually travel.
Yeah.
And that results in people over planning their destinations for the day. So generally, it's safe to assume that it's one destination per day, and then you can basically explore northern Ladakh, which is beyond the pass of Khardungla, and
which is what?
Which is Nubra Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you do the villages of Sumur, Diskit, Hundar, and Turtuk, and once you do northern Ladakh, which is Nubra, for about 3 days, you can come back to Leh, spend a night just around town, have a change up of your dinner, and then head to either the lakes of Pangong or further southwest to Somoriri and to the lake of Sokar. And so either way, you can if you've got 14 days, you can hit all those spots up. With
2-3 days in Nubra, a couple of days in... Most people do Pangong as a day trip, right? Which defies logic for me. It's so far and it's so beautiful. Why would you want to go drive there and drive back the same day? It's retarded.
Isn't it like 8 hours or something to get there?
It's on a good day, it's 5 hours. On a bad day, it can be as much as 8 or 9 hours, especially if there's a truck that's rolled over in the pass or something.
Right.
And when the rains come, the road gets muddy, and then you've got... lots of people on bullets who've never ridden bullets before at such altitudes.
You have to ride a bullet.
It's now, it's a story to brag about, right?
Exactly.
I took my bullet up to Ladakh.
Exactly.
It's not even my bullet. I rented it from the guy.
A lot of people do get stuck, and so you have to account for those things. So Pangong is best done as an overnight trip and not as a day trip.
But there are places to stay in Pangong.
There are lots of camps, guest houses. There are no really good hotels yet, but there are plenty of semi-luxurious camps around the village of Spangmik, which is the first village that most people stay at. And then there are 2 further villages down the lake, which are called Man and Merak, which are also much better options than Spangmik because they're less crowded and more authentic.
Right. Now
So 2-3 days in Nubra, a couple of days in Pangong, and then...
come back to Leh and then go down to Sokar and Somoriri. So that'll be about another 3 days, with 1 day at Korzok on the banks of Somoriri, another day traveling to Sokar, and then a 3rd day exploring that region and then coming back to Leh.
So Korzok is where we had gone, right? Where we camped with the Changpas. Yeah,
that's right. So we camped up in Korzok Phu, which is above and behind the village.
Yeah, that was really cool. And we had some great photo opportunities in the morning. After a terribly rainy night, right? It was a terribly rainy night, if you remember.
I remember setting up the tents with our driver, Imran.
Yeah.
And while you guys waited in the car and it was raining, and then we got some water and food from the nomads too.
Yeah.
To supplement our meal.
Sleeping in the rain in a tent is, things one can not necessarily have to do again.
But then what's the experience about?
No, of course. And that, maybe not everybody wants that earthy of an experience. But these camps that you are talking about, and now you're saying semi-luxuries. So are they suitable for families, for example? With like kids and stuff.
Yeah. You can imagine the sort of camping one does in safaris in Bandhavgarh and
so like
other
Swiss
places.
tents.
It's Swiss tents. They're canvas. They've generally got... It's a 3-section tent with a veranda, a bedroom, and a bathroom.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And the bathroom is
we
mostly
didn't stay
permanent.
in one of those. We stayed in that little tent with all of us cramped up. And
we had a little bit more of a basic
experience.
Bezant decided to chuck us into the wild end.
Well, when you're with the nomads, you live like the nomads.
Yeah, and why not? But it's good, there's other options for people who don't always want to do that.
For sure.
So excellent. So now there's like 3 big spots that one can go, and you keep coming back to Leh as we did to I guess recuperate a little bit.
You spoke a little bit about eat something a little bit different.
Yeah.
But what's the food like there?
I mean,
a lot of people feel it's only non-veg, but I remember when we went, we ate a lot of dal chawal.
Hoshna ate a lot of paneer, I think.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
I think if you're doing a package tour, especially ones that include meals, dinners and stuff, then most hotels in Ladakh, I think, hire the same cooks. Because it tastes the same wherever you go. It's just a lot of dal, chawal, paneer, and pretty basic vegetables. What we do on a lot of our trips is take along our own cook and then buy a whole lot of chicken, fish, and meat before we set off.
So on that note, we're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the seen effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
Welcome back to the reDiscovery podcast.
We've learned that over a few years because I kind of get bored with the food myself. And so I was like, if I'm getting bored, sure, our guests are getting bored. And so...
I was getting thoroughly bored. I'm sorry to say.
Two Parsis traveling with you, then I think a little bit of non-veg is required.
Exactly.
And by little bit, I mean every day.
Yeah. And so we've incorporated that since. But I think Leh is a good break because you also get some pizza and, Western food.
Backpacker style.
Exactly. Lots of good cafes.
Eaten some good pasta and all also, and Leh. It was pretty nice.
Okay. I don't remember everything we ate. It's just a lot of paneer. So, I know you mentioned earlier that you've started angling in Ladakh, right? Because you talked about the fish. So now we can catch our own fish now and eat it?
Yes, we've been starting with a lot of fishing trips now. The best seasons are March and April, towards the end of winter, and then again in September, October, and November, when the waters are really clear, blue, and they don't yet have the glacial sediment of the summers. We travel with some really good fishing guides who've been fishing for the last 2 decades in Ladakh. We get permits from the local fisheries department. You can get them per day or for 5 days or for 10 days. And there's a lot of trout, rainbow trout and brown trout that can be caught, which are an introduced species. And then there are lots of local fishes, all of which we still have not identified by their Western or their scientific names, but there are some bottom-feeding suckerfish and then some Tibetan stone loaches, and they all taste great.
Nice. So then we just catch and your cook will cook them for us?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Exactly. So what we do is we just go out, catch, and then hand it over to the cook and then crack open a nice beer and wait.
Oh, where is this beer coming from?
It's we've also started putting that back in the back of the truck.
Oh,
so I think
excellent.
So you said angling around March and April.
Yeah.
But June, July, August, September is typically the Ladakh season.
That's right.
Is that the best time to go, or do people now go, all around the year? How does it work?
We've got clients coming, I'd say 10 months out of the year. We've got people who come when it's minus 35, minus 40 in the Changtang, and looking for photographs of the nomads, because that's really a rough time for the nomads. All the sheep are cold, all the people are cold. It's quite a difficult life, and one that deserves to be documented. Then we've got people coming in February for the snow leopards, February and March, and then we've got fishing trips in March and April. And then slowly, peak tourist season starts around end April, which is oftentimes when a lot of Indian families start coming up because it's children's vacation time.
Right.
And then it continues till August, end August. So the primary groups coming from May to August are Indians.
Okay.
So it's pretty crowded at that time.
Is that Leh that's crowded, or just the entire region is crowded?
It's all the big tourist hotspots, Hundar in Nubra, Turtuk in Nubra, then Pangong, Leh, they're crowded. But really good escapes still at this period are the region of Zanskar, which is under Kargil, south of Kargil. And it's not a really good road to Padum, so there's still not that many families coming because they want a more comfortable experience.
Of course, yeah.
And so it's a good escape during tourist season to either go to Zanskar or to go to parts of Nubra, which are Sumur and towards the glacier of Siachen, which are still pretty free of tourists in the summer.
And that's safe to go to?
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
It's got half the Indian Army over there.
Right. Well, I suppose. So how much now, if, say somebody came during this tourist season because assuming they can, holidays and whatever, it works out best for them and they've figured out they can come for 2 weeks, what would you say is a rough costing estimate?
To do a basic trip.
Yeah. Or something mid-range, because not everybody wants to rough it out also and stay in the tent like we did.
Sure. So I think if you're not looking at something luxurious or special, or if you're not hiring specialized guides, you can basically expect to pay about between 8 and 11,000 rupees a day.
Per person?
No, for each taxi.
Okay.
So basically, however many people you feel comfortable cramming in a Toyota Innova, which for most people would be 4 people.
Right.
So a family of 4 could travel at about 8 to 10,000 rupees
for the
a
transport.
day.
For the transport.
Yeah, and then
For
it
the
depends
transport.
on what sort of accommodations you want. So,
and what are the ranges of accommodations?
guest houses in Leh can be as cheap as 1,200 rupees per night to as expensive as 25,000 rupees per night.
Okay, so standard
for
ranges.
the good hotels, yeah. So then it depends on your hotel budget, really.
But that's in Leh. Now, what about these camps by the lake, for example, the Swiss tents?
So those are generally in the range of guest houses are about 2,000 rupees with dinner and then and breakfast, and then you've got really nice camps which are about 6,000 rupees with dinner and breakfast.
Okay.
And we're developing our own property in Sumur.
Okay.
It's called the Kesar. We basically leased a guest house, and we're developing it into a boutique property. So it's very traditional Daki stuff with quite a lot of creature comforts and a cafe and a bar.
Oh, that sounds
nice.
cool.
Yeah. And this is where?
This is based in Sumur in Nubra.
In Nubra.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So definitely check that out next trip
So
that
if somebody
we make.
wanted to do a really budget trip, like 10,000 rupees a day for a car is not cheap.
Right.
Yeah, so
So-
travel like the way, we travel in buses and share taxis everywhere. We don't rent cars, and all the states that we've done so far have been very, very basic. So how
Right.
would we do this?
So I think the best way is to catch a shared taxi. Leh has a polo ground, which is also doubling as a taxi stand and a taxi parking.
Okay.
And you can head over to the Leh Polo Ground. You've got departures.
No polo happens in a polo.
I know, I was just going to say, did I actually play polo?
The polo only happens for a couple of weeks in August or September.
Do they bet on the polo? Because when we went to Meghalaya, do you remember? They
Oh,
had
yeah,
that
yeah,
whole
they had the-
archery thing where they bet
on the archery.
It was weird, yeah.
Once a week or something it
yeah.
happens in around Shillong.
I've seen a lot of archery. I've yet to see any polo actually happening, even though we're at the polo ground quite frequently. So I don't know about the betting bit. But you can grab a shared taxi from there to most destinations. It'll be considerably cheaper for about 300 rupees per seat.
Versus 10,000 rupees for
versus
taxi.
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
10,000
I think
for the
we'll
taxi.
go for that.
Yeah. Share taxi is good. We can always take an extra seat for our big
Bums.
bags
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bums.
And there are also a lot of buses that go to a few villages around Ladakh.
Okay, so
So
that
if you want the authentic Ladakhi experience, you've got to go, I guess, by a Ladakhi bus for 20 hours to Somuri
With a goat in your lap.
with a goat in your lap.
which maybe somebody will then cook for us after,
sure.
so we can eat it. So then
For
I
sure.
don't mind carrying the goat. We've traveled in Nagaland with all kinds of produce and animals in the share taxi with us.
Right,
So,
right.
So yeah, that's fine.
So besides, the Somuri and the Sokar and the Amir Khan Lake, Pongang,
Yeah.
Pangong.
Pangong. I always
yeah.
say Pongang.
Yeah, that's not in this country.
Oh, it's North Korea, correct. So besides that, tell us some of the nicer, quieter, more interesting offbeat sort of places that you can take people to.
Yeah, so like for travelers who have more time and want to do a little bit of an immersive experience, like the Daha village that we went to.
Yeah, the one with the Aryans.
Yeah, the one where everyone thought they were descendants of Alexander or
Right,
his
right.
army. Yeah.
Right. Well, if Dahanu is both those villages, Da and Hanu, are really touristy during the peak season. A lot of people go there. And really all you have to do is just continue up the road and not stop there.
Right.
And you'll be in a village where no one goes to, and it's the same people, and it's people who are more welcoming, who are less jaded by tourism, who will less frequently ask you for money in return for a photo. And so it's really just looking on a map, seeing where everyone's going, and then going to a village either before or after that.
Right.
Is a good strategy, one that we use all the time. We frequently go with a lot of our photographers to places where no tourists have gone before.
Okay. So, I mean, I have to ask this question because it comes up sometimes when in a discussion on Ladakh, and that's about, the taxi problem that people sometimes face if they bring a taxi from another state versus bringing their own car. And I've heard that you can't use a taxi with Himachal plates, for example. And so what's the deal with that?
Ladakh, for most tour operators, has a really short earning period.
Right.
3-4 months a year. And so the taxi union is really strong. What often ends up happening is the taxi union does not allow plates from outside of Ladakh to operate on sightseeing tours within Ladakh. So you're allowed to, if you've rented a car in Srinagar, the car will be allowed to drop you to Leh, but it won't be allowed to take you sightseeing around the whole region. And then you'll have to change taxis and hire a plate with local Leh plates, JK10. And, if you're driving your own car, you've got the registration in your name, you're going to have no problems.
Okay, that's
It's
good.
only for commercial vehicles really from outside the state. So if you rent a car from Delhi that has yellow plates, you will most likely be stopped at some point, and the union will ask you to rent a local car instead, which is problematic. But the good part about having a union is that all taxi rates are written down in the union rate book. So,
no bargaining.
So there's not much bargaining, but there's also not much
hating it. No bargaining.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, I guess the way to do it then is to book all of this in advance with a company like Voyager. And so you have all of that. I mean, because you're going to have to take that taxi anyway. So you might as well have it all planned out before you get there, especially during season.
The land rates are generally the same thing, and the hotel rates, you can always find online, and tour agents will give you the same rates because their commission and markup is built into those rates anyway. So it makes no difference if you're booking directly from the hotel or if you're booking through an agent, because the commission's built in for the agent. And so it's for most of Ladakh, you can do it on your own through one local agent. And if you need something more specialized where you need to hire guides or location experts or things like that, then you can always hire companies such as Voyager.
Right. Excellent.
Okay, so final question. Ladakh season is coming up June, July, August. What's the 3 things someone should keep in mind when they're planning the perfect Ladakh trip?
I think flights are the number one thing that you want to get
they're quite expensive,
sorted early.
Yeah.
So we've seen flights go up till 30,000 rupees round trip, and then
from Delhi.
And then
God.
Their off-season times are as cheap as 2,500 rupees each way. So you can do the whole thing in maybe 5,000 rupees.
Wow.
But they can get pretty out of hand. So I think flights are the number one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is please read up about altitude. Make sure you have 2 days in hand in Leh to acclimatize.
We took all those
Diamox.
pills.
Diamox.
Yeah.
I think we should lay off them unless your doctor sort of tells you that you should.
It's best to check with your doctor either way before heading to a place that's at such an altitude. Just to make sure your body can cope with the rigors of high altitude.
I mean, we met people who had to, drop out halfway and come back from their trip because they just couldn't handle the altitude.
Right, and you also want to check that your tour operator has an oxygen cylinder in the car, and they know how to use it. A lot of people realize once they're at altitude that they can't really cope with it.
Right. And anything else you want to add? I think that's only 2 things.
Well, those 3.
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, well, that was Behzad from Voyager Expeditions. Behzad, do you want to give out your, social media stuff?
Yeah, sure. You can follow us on Facebook at Voyager Travel. You can visit us at voyager.com on the web. And you can check out some of our photographs of Ladakh at behzadlarry.com, BEHZADLARRY.
Excellent. So that's it for this episode. To see some of the photos from our Ladakh trip and read about our experiences, you can go to our website at www.rediscoveryproject.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And see you next episode.
Thanks for listening.
Happy travels.
In the next episode, we are going to take you to explore the Mughal city of Agra beyond the Taj Mahal.
एक्सक्यूज मी भैया, एक्सक्यूज मी.
बोलिए मैडम.
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, ड्रिंक्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर सकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है. आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम. आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप. सब आपकी उंगलियों पे.